All right, welcome to SAM.gov bids, guys, where we walk through small business solicitations together and we answer your questions along the way. So today we do have 4 small business solicitations pulled up that we will be jumping into in just a second. But if you are new here and you don't want to miss future SAM.gov bids episodes, do consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so that you can ask your questions live on future streams. And if you do happen to be someone who is recently registered in SAM.gov and you're looking to get started bidding on SAM, make sure you check out our website, GovKidMethod.com, for free and paid resources that were designed specifically to support new federal contractors just like you. So I will go ahead and jump into sharing my screen here, just give you a glimpse of what we're going to be looking at today. So we do have a Wilderness District Office flooring and interior paint contract that we will be opening up with today. We also have landscaping services. Number 3, we have occupational therapist services. And then we also have shred services, which sounds something like paper shredding services, which I thought might be light and easy to look at. And to be transparent, all of the contracts for today's episode, I picked ones to be a little bit more straightforward since our last episode was a little bit more on the heavy side. And like I always say, I try to include diversity of solicitations and industries and solicitation types from episode to episode to be able to expose you to and work with you and walk you through as many different types of things that you could come up against. That way, you're just that much more equipped and prepared when you start doing this on your own. Or if that happens to be now, then you can ask questions live when we do this as well. So let's go ahead and get started with our first opportunity, which is for the flooring and interior paint. So this is Department of Agriculture. This is due the 29th. So about 4 or 5 days here. Small business set aside. This is to be performed in New Mexico. We do have the NAICS code 238330 for flooring contractors. And they're letting us know in the description that the U.S. Forest Service, Gila National Forests, has a requirement to replace the flooring and repaint the interior of the district office according to the specs in the statement of work. So very straightforward. In terms of documents, we have, we have specs, we have a fire plan, statement of work for the paint, statement of work for the flooring. We do have a wage determination, and we also have what appears to be the actual solicitation document itself, which is what we will dive in and get started with today. All right, so showing that all these solicitations are often different in terms of the way they look, the forms that are used, the way that they're laid out. So our page 1 on this is letting us know right off the bat, this is an Rfq request for quote. They are letting us know this is simplified acquisition, which tells us that this is going to be under the threshold, the SAT, which is $250K. The basis for award is going to be best value trade-off. Okay, so the lowest price is probably not going to be the winning bid on this unless it is most advantageous to the government and they are found to be technically acceptable as well. But they are using a best value trade-off instead of a straight LPTA. They are saying they want you to submit pages 4 through 6, which we will take a look at. It's probably going to be a pricing schedule. They are identifying it as a schedule of items. They're letting us know there's no site visits on this. But if you want to schedule something, because there's no formal site visit, you can contact the POC listed here. So pretty straightforward. So pages 4 through 6 And here we go. Here's our actual solicitation document. In this case, it's a standard form 1442. On this, they're letting you know the magnitude, which is actually quite helpful. We already knew from the simplified acquisition that it was under 250K, but now they're going a step forward and letting us know this is actually between 25K and 100. So they don't always give you a magnitude, but when they do, it is super helpful. They are referring to sealed offers. So we will have to keep an eye to see if this is going to be more of like an invitation for bid, like we looked at on the previous episode, where because of COVID, they're not allowing it. But typically, these would be sealed bids delivered in person, not just an email. So we'll keep an eye out on that as well. And then we have our schedule of items here where they want pricing for Mobe and demo. So mobilization and demolition is the first pricing CLIN. Second pricing CLIN is going to be for the flooring. And then the third and the last pricing CLIN is for the painting. So for the flooring, they're letting us know it's 2,500 square feet. The painting, it's 7,500 square feet. Then they want you to fill this out: name, signature, email, phone. Pretty straightforward stuff. So again, pages 4 through 6, the 1442 form, as well as schedule of items, is what you're going to be completing to respond to this at a minimum. We will see if there's additional proposal information or instruction to offers provided in this. We do have photos, which are not overly helpful in this case. You do need to have insurance. Registered in SAM, and complete your reps and certs as well. So your instruction to offers that I was referring to, they're letting us know that your quote shall include A price quotation, B, a technical proposal, basically providing certification as a licensed plumber, which is interesting because this is flooring and painting. So I do find that to be interesting that you have to provide certification that you're a licensed plumber. Factor 2 price, the quoted price will be evaluated for reasonableness. And then past performance, they want a minimum of 2 references for, remember, recent and relevant, the 2 R's for past performance within the last 3 years. I'm still kind of scratching my head on this licensed plumber thing. Also for the state of Arizona, because this is New Mexico. Let me just double check this. Yeah, place performance is New Mexico. Contracting does make mistakes sometimes, guys, and they do a lot of copy and pasting. I'm not 100% sure if they left something in that they should not have. But I think it's a possibility. So going from section L, which is instruction offers, moving to section M, which is how the winning bidder will be chosen, the evaluation factor is best value. They're letting us know kind of the scorecard a little bit. How are you going to be rated? Cost pricing, technical capability, and past performance, which we already know, but they should be going into more on those 3 factors. But first, for pricing, they're looking for reasonableness, okay? So they are going to put emphasis on these other factors, technical and past performance, but they need to use your price to determine that your price is reasonable. They're not necessarily going to be grading the price, right? Because they already give you a range that you should be within. But they want your price to compare to other bidders and to make sure it's reasonable against maybe the government's own market research or their own independent cost estimates. Once they have that, then they're going to go more into these other non-price factors. So factor 1, at a minimum, for your technical approach, they want you to describe your planned approach. So how are you going to replace the floor, and do the interior painting. Okay. So included in this is the equipment used, key personnel, qualifications, equipment, supply, yada, yada, yada. Also identify major subcontractors, major payment, and final cleanup as well. So then that's factor one. Factor two, submit a short narrative for experience, providing work similar in nature and scope. And remember, they said 2 for past performance. So they are actually separating these. And if you guys don't know, there actually is a difference between past experience and past performance. Past performance is how well you did on the work. Past experience is the work that you have previously performed. So when they do break it out, that is the easiest way for me to explain the difference. So when they want experience, it's like, okay, what is the work that you have experience doing? You know, that's recent and relevant. But when they want past performance, how did you perform on it? That's more of like, was the customer happy, providing references, that sort of thing. They are very convoluted. Oftentimes the way that contracting uses them is very convoluted as well, because sometimes they'll just ask for past performance. And that is the widely acceptable terminology that we just throw around. But there is a difference technically between experience and past performance. And that is where the difference is that you need to know when you find yourself in situations where they're actually asking for both. So they'll continue to say, hey, for your past performance summary, we want this information, okay? And they're going to rate you from basically low risk to high risk. And that's how the rating process is going to work for that. So you have an idea, you have a bit of a scorecard or a like a report card of knowing, like we talked about in the last episode, how you're going to be rated. So the idea being behind this, to build your response, build your proposal. Don't just give them a price because you're not going to be compliant. Build that working backwards from what you know they're going to be grading on and looking for. And this is also a way that you know that you're not starting with a blank sheet of paper, guessing what do we put in there? Did we just put fluff? Did we put our company background? Our company started in 1987, yada, yada, yada. Contracting does not care about that. They care about these price and non-price factors specifically, because when they're grading and rating and evaluating you, you know, once they get all the bids, they take them in the room in the back, put them on the big table and say, okay, we're going to determine who won this thing. They're looking for very specific things. So you should be writing with the intention of writing to those very specific things, and really not much more than that. So don't worry a whole lot about page count and things like that, unless you have a not to exceed number, at which point in time you don't want to go over the page count. But don't try to make pages longer. Just cut the fluff, get right to it. If it's a paragraph, if it's a couple sentences, so be it. Just make sure you're answering specifically, you're writing to exactly what they're asking. And last point on this before we move on is, this is why when it comes to proposal writing and just bidding in general on SAM, on federal contracts, you as a new federal contractor, you really have to learn to walk before you can run, very much so in this case. And really what this means is, before you can bid and proposal write, you need to learn to read. And that is the emphasis that we put on the channel here. And the reason why I do these episodes is I'm trying to get you from crawling to walking. Or if you're not even crawling yet, get you to crawling and then to walking, because it kind of gets easier once this stuff is not so overwhelming and intimidating to you, and you're not seeing all these things for the first time thinking it's a second language. I mean, I know it's a second language, but once you learn that language, then you have some tools in your tool belt, and you have enough to, get your hands dirty and be dangerous with. And that's what we aim to equip you with here, so that you can go out and bid and play the numbers game and win. And win 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, whatever. That is what matters. Busy work, chasing shiny objects, GSA schedules, collecting all of the set-asides, going to conferences, trying to do a year of marketing, responding to a whole bunch of sources sought notices, making the perfect CAPE statement, a website. The list goes on and on and on and on. These things do not bring money to the bank. They do not get contracts obligated and awarded to your company. What does is identifying bids that are a close match for your business on SAM. So finding those, then learning how to read those, and then learning how to write to what you read in a compliant way, and just doing it and getting better and getting debriefs so that you get the feedback so you can beef up and get 1% better each and every time, or in some cases 5, 10, 20% better each and every time. And do that at agencies and with contracting offices that buy a lot of what your company has to offer. So then as you proceed over time, you can even be more targeted in your approach. But you can't set your targets. You can't do all that starting out because you don't even know what you're doing right now. So I ended up on a soapbox, so I will digress now, but it's what I'm super passionate about. And to be honest, it's what I see working the best, which is why I'm investing the time in it for you. We'll check the chat. Good morning, good afternoon for some. Very rainy day here down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. If anybody knows the area. Pammy J, thank you for the valuable training. Derek and Pamela Jackson Services out of St. Louis, Missouri, and Illinois, close to Scott Air Force Base. Awesome. And welcome back, Pammy J, from yesterday's episode as well. Hey, Rafa, thanks for hanging out with us. Good advice. I appreciate that. And hello to everybody. Cool, guys. And yeah, we answer questions. We have some dialogue that goes back and forth in between the bids. So feel free to put those as you have them, and we take little mini breaks in between to answer those. But we do like to keep on pace and keep the train rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and close out our first bid opportunity. Hey, Yoda Bomb, what's going on, man? Appreciate you very much. Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and move on to number 2. Number 2, we have landscaping services. If you just joined, we're taking a little easy today because yesterday's were a bit more involved. So again, landscaping services is for the VA. I think we have another VA one coming up as well. August 25th, actually due today. So this will not be as practical of a bid, but it'll be a good exercise for you. This is small business set aside. And this is for the Bay Pines VA healthcare system. We do have some copy and paste happening here in the description. Then we have, as attachments, we have a solicitation, we have a map, we have a new vendor form, and then perhaps an amendment to the solicitation 0001. We do get an inclination from what they've copy and pasted here, so we'll just spend a minute to extract what info we can from what we have here. I know the formatting makes it a little bit overwhelming. And this is in regards to the amendment. It reads, the purpose of this amendment is for landscaping and renovation services to change the required line items and to extend the closing date from 8/23 to 8/25. The line items to be quoted has been changed. Looks like they're doing one job. And they're wanting, yeah, you know what? It's the formatting is so poor. I'm actually I know this is copy and pasted from the solicitation. So I'm just going to take it straight from the horse's mouth here and open up the solicitation. You don't always have to weed through that stuff because it is typically a copy and paste. Now, if we can't find it anywhere else, we will come back, but let's just see what we have to work with. So we've got a 58-page solicitation. This is request for quote, firm fixed price contract. Submit your quotes to John Hamilton. The Q&A deadline was August 17th, so that is also passed. They're telling you to not try to go around. It says you're reminded that reps from your company shall not, in all caps, contact any Bay Pines personnel to discuss this RFQ, right? Because they have the insider information. So no insider information allowed. They give us a pricing CLIN of one job, provide a one-time service, which is interesting. Just a one-time service for labor, materials, incidentals, to conduct the 6-year inspection. What? Wow, I think this is wrong. I don't know. To conduct the 6-year inspection of the smoke control system. If you guys are with me, this is landscaping services. So if the last example we looked at was a stretch, this is certainly a stretch. This is not. And also, what was catching me early on is this is just like one CLIN, one job we can see here on the screen. But when you bounce back to that stuff that I said I wanted to skip over initially, we have a lot of different CLINs here. Yeah, so this is, I don't know. This is an extreme example of something that I believe was copy and pasted and left in, or is just straight up incorrect. And guys, I don't look at these ahead of time. I look at these live with you. It's my first time seeing it. We have our reps and certs here. So this way we can go through them together. So you get my natural reaction to these. And in contracting, they make mistakes. I know that they do their best. I know I rag on contracting sometimes, only because this is hard enough for small businesses to figure out without them making additional mistakes on top of it. But there is something dearly wrong. And then we have our statement of work. So let's see, is this a statement of work for the landscaping, or is it for this 6-year maintenance thing that they're talking about? And I can tell you just by looking at it, this is more landscape type stuff. Removal of rocks, plants, install new plants, irrigation. This is what you would expect to find. Tasks. So task 1, remove all irrigation. Task 2, place a weed barrier. Task 3, plant low maintenance plants, right? All the way through task 7. So guys, I'm trying to build you up also. I'm trying to give you confidence. I'm trying to allow you, because I know you have like no faith in yourself at all. But if you can just have a little bit of faith, if you're reading something that does not make sense, ask the question. I know that they're saying this is due today, or the RFI period has passed, but we just went through those 7 tasks, and we have a pricing table for providing a 6-year smoke control system. I don't know what else to say. It's not correct. They made a boo-boo. They need to fix this. They need to extend this contract so that anybody who's serious about this, albeit if anybody was serious about this, it should have already been caught, unless they are just so, I don't know. Actually, I don't have an unless, so I take that back. There's no way that filling out that pricing would make any sort of sense. So surprise, we do find these once and again. I've actually found one back in the day where they actually left the government's independent cost estimate defaulted in the pricing table. So you actually got to see what their pricing was. So it's just, the longer you're in the game, the more you see this stuff. I'm not, super surprised to see this. I'm surprised that we got one on one of our live sessions here. But yeah, I'm curious what this amendment is all about. Did they fix it? They did. Oh my goodness, they fixed it. They fixed it. They fixed it. They fixed it. The purpose of this amendment for landscaping is to change the required line items. Yeah, no kidding. To change it from vent inspection to now we have these 10 pricing line item CLINs. So they amended it. They fixed it. They made good on this. So I won't be as hard on them. But for all of you guys watching, we just saw contracting make a huge copy and paste error mistake without any sort of double checking, and then they publicly posted it. Thing is, how many days did they give you as an extension? They gave you 2 days, which is not enough. You're going to add all of these line items to be priced out. They should give you a week for that. But at least now you see like one job. This is what we were seeing over here. Get rid of that. One job, where the formatting's poor, but it's a straight copy and paste, and that's what I was looking to find. So I think we've learned enough from this one. Hey, I like to have fun with these, so it definitely mixes it up. See what's going on here in the chat. Derek, what's the best way to solicit subs without giving so much info that they push you out the bid as the consultant? So if I'm understanding this properly, how do you have a sub quote a known government job without the sub cutting you out and going direct? That's the question that I'm hearing. If the sub is registered in SAM and they are actually a prime at heart, there's nothing you can do. Don't work with them. They will beat you on pricing every day of the week. You can't beat subs because subs self-perform. Thing is, there are not a lot of subs that do self-perform, or I call them subs, but just there's not a lot of companies. I mean, a lot is extremely relative for me to say, but especially for small business contracts, a lot of it is a prime working with a sub. Okay. So if you have anything that you can self-perform where you don't need to work with a subcontractor and do any teaming, you should, because no one's going to be able to beat you on price. You're just going to slay and you're going to do awesome. But coming back to your question, it's not very likely if you call up somebody to get a quote that they're going to be able to undercut you because they're not registered in SAM. And they didn't want to just mess with the hassle and the paperwork, yada, yada, of learning how to be a prime government contractor. So they're probably just not going to want to do that. Like I said, unless they are already doing that, in which case you don't stand a chance. But the last point to your question, we will give them, like sanitized versions of documents. I have done that in the past, where maybe we will take off the solicitation number so they can't go look it up in SAM, or we give them the information like, the statement of work and the things that are really specific to the job, but we leave out some more of the contracting jargon. But, you even have to make sure, because like federal acquisition regulations, things like that, terms on the contract, those also do flow down to your sub. So we don't take a whole lot out, but you can do more of a sanitized version, like I said, to stop it from leaking on SAM if that is a concern of yours. But even that being said, if that's a concern of yours and they can do this, they're probably going to cut you out anyways. So good question, but I think it kind of answers itself depending on who they are and what type of player they are in the space. Pammy says commercial janitorial. Yep, there's a lot of janitorial custodial contracts on SAM. There are specific NAICS codes just for janitorial. You just need to look out for those. What parts of the solicitation should be emailed given to the sub? Yeah, so 2 things. Number 1, I already said, the statement of work or a sanitized statement of work. And then number 2, the pricing information, or like the pricing table. You need the sub to quote exactly the way that you have to submit, because one of the biggest problems with working with subs is, they're commercial or they're B2B or B2C. They're used to doing things their way. And that doesn't fly very good when it comes to government contracting. And so if you call up a sub and you're getting a quote, it's very, very likely they're just going to use their typical quotation sheet or whatever they use, template, and they're just going to kick it over to you. And then it'll be like a 1 number, or it'll be 2 numbers. And then the government's asking you for a breakdown, or they're asking you for these different pricing CLINs. And you're like, should I just submit this? No, like this needs to look like this. So to make it easier on your subs and to have a good working practice, if this is the strategy you're going to be using, you need to give them that pricing structure up front, and you need to tell them. And I've done it many times where I literally walk through it with them. Do you know what this means? Do you know what they're asking here for you? Because you don't just have to fill half of this thing out, or you don't get to move numbers together. Like, no creativity belongs in this form. They have to quote it exactly. So pricing CLIN by pricing CLIN. Or if it's an Excel sheet or a breakdown that the government gives you, it has to be line by line by line. Like, you will have to take them line by line in some instances. Otherwise, they just want to give you a number and treat you like everybody else and move on. You can't use that number. So those are the two things that are primary. The statement of work, make sure they are doing everything, the entire scope. Okay. And if there's something you have questions about, make sure, because you don't want them pricing something that is less than the scope or more than the scope. And the other way to have checks and balances with this, which I always encourage, is to get 2 or 3 quotes. Because if you just get the one, you don't know, especially if this is not your area, your line of work, you can't fact check this. But if you have 2 or 3 quotes, now you can compare them to each other, kind of like what the government does with price reasonableness. You do the same thing as a prime, receiving bids and quotes on the work. And then who's the low guy, who's the high guy, or whatever. And, oh, hey, this number is like way out of left ballpark. It's way lower. It's way high. Hey, are you quoting the same thing, or did you miss something, or did you include the cleanup at the end, or whatever? You're able to do that and have that type of conversation if you have multiple subs. Otherwise, if you just have one quote, you're kind of just wishing and hoping that they nailed it. And if they miss something and you win the contract, you're on the hook, comes out of your profit. It's unlikely you're going to get a successful request for equitable adjustment to get more, coins in the pot. You're going to have to pay it, and you don't want to do that. So these are best practices with working with subs, and I hope it helps. Todd Hubbard, hello from North Carolina. Brand new to this as a business opportunity. So yeah, what are the legal limitations for contracting without being the entity doing the work? Yeah, so Todd, you're talking about limitations on subcontracting, and Todd and anybody else. If you're interested in this, again, repeating the question, what are the legal limits for contracting without being the entity doing the work? Or in other words, self-performing 100% of it. If you want to deep dive into this, I created a masterclass just for this. If you just go to my website, GovKidMethod.com, it's just free training. It's free to enroll. It's like an hour long. And I go into a lot of depth with you in the different FAR clauses and things that support your understanding in this. This way you can kind of be not like a lawyer, but you know a few of the regulations, and you know what they mean, because I break them down for you in there. So check that out in detail if that's something that you're interested in. But the high level response that I can give you right now, and then we'll move on here in just a minute. So there is something called limitations on subcontracting, which is like the legal limits, right? So for professional service contracts, it's 50%. For construction contracts, it's 15%, 1.5. And for other procurement and goods type procurements, it's also 50%, or other specialty trades. I believe that's also 15%, or 15 or 50. They're all in the masterclass, like I said. But the big ones are construction and services, 50 and 15, which means starting out, let me make sure. Okay, yeah. Which means when you're first starting out, say you're professional services, say we do services, so we know 50% is our number, okay? That means right off the bat, at a basic understanding of this, you have to do 50% of the work self-performed, then you can do whatever you want with the other 50%. Okay, baseline understanding. Where it gets tricky is the kind of exemptions from this. So number one, this only even counts, okay, when it's over simplified acquisition level, which is 250K. So if the bid's under 250K, like my road salt video that a lot of people watch and say, how did you do that? Well, it was 90,000 or less than that. So it didn't matter. Limits on subcontracting didn't matter because they don't kick in until the SAT, simplified acquisition threshold. Okay. So this only matters on over 250K. All right. So if it's under, you're fine. If it's over, then you're doing your 50%. Now, the other thing to understand about this, and then we'll move on. is another concept called similarly situated entity. So when you read the FAR regulations, the Federal Acquisition Regulations for limitations on subcontracting, it says contracting or the government will not pay more than, and in this case, 50% to companies or contractors or other teaming partners that are not similarly situated in excess of that 50%. So similarly situated means companies that are like you, meaning they are also small businesses, and they also share the small set-aside status associated with the bid. So layman's terms, Derek, make sense of this. It sounds confusing. Again, check out the master class. I break it down. Trying to put it in a shoebox is difficult. But in layman's terms, okay, SAM.gov, I see a bid. It's set aside for woman-owned small business. Okay, and you are woman-owned small business, so you can go and bid on it and win it. Okay, and it's professional services, so you have to do 50%. Okay, so you can either say it's over the SAT. So say it's a $500,000 contract. So this does apply. Limitations on subcontracting do apply. Woman-owned small business. You have two options if you win this. You can either do 50% yourself. Okay, do your limitations of self-performance, the minimums you have to do, and then sub out the other 50%. Or you could work with what's known as a similarly situated entity, which is another woman-owned small business. Okay, they are similarly situated. They're small. They're woman-owned small business. And then you can give them any percentage of the work that you want. So you can give them 100%. You can give them 99%. You can give them 51%, whatever. And this is just a professional services example, very similar to construction being 15. It works the same way. And the reason for that is the government is trying to pump money into small business programs. So if they're trying to pump money into women-owned small businesses and the woman-owned small business wins it, but then they go and give it to a non-woman-owned small business, say they're just a regular old small business, and they take a 5% fee and they give everything else to them. Well, that's circumventing government monies. That's not good. It's called an illegal pass-through scheme because government's throwing money at a place and it's not going there. But if you're working with a similarly situated entity where you're small, woman-owned small business, they're also woman-owned small business, the money ends up being a woman-owned small business. So the self-performance piece isn't as important. And it's not a sticking point any longer if you are working with a company that is similarly situated as you, because then the money is still going where it needs to go. Okay, it becomes a problem and self-performance becomes a must when you are not working with somebody who's similarly situated. That's where you have to do your minimum self-performance percentages. Way longer than I expected, but I hope that makes sense. Is there a database to locate contractors? There's not really great databases for subs. There's subnet. Google Maps is what most people use because a lot of the work you're doing and quoting is going to be geography based anyways. Rafa, also share the scope of work that involves their skill set 100%. Yep. No, sorry, you got it. You got it, Rafa. So statement of work and pricing to subs for quote. Yes. What about redacting the department and contact information before sharing it to the subs? It's up to you. Like I said, they can reach out to them if they want, but if they're not registered in SAM, they're not a prime government contractor, there's not much that they can do. But just know, subs should never be talking directly to the government. That's your job. They should not be having their own line of communication. So I would just kind of not put them in a position or give them information to allow that to happen to begin with. So if you want to sanitize that off, I would be in support of that. And then let's see here. As a consultant, do I have to stay involved after winning the quote, or can I simply push everything over to the sub with the winning bid and be out of the equation? No, absolutely not. You absolutely must be remained in the contract because this is your contract with the government. There's no easy money here. Like, you have to do the work, even if you're not self-performing because you're working with a similarly situated entity or you're doing something underneath the SAT. Okay, you need to be involved 100% because the contract goes sideways, it's your butt on the line. Yeah, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about that. Even if you are working with a sub, you're the prime. and the contract is with you. There is no contract between a sub and the government. You have a contract with the government, and then you have another contract separately between you and the sub, and that's just a commercial contract. But with you and the government, you have a governmental tie there. So 100%. All right, guys, let's keep the boat rolling here. Great questions. I'm happy to answer them. Anything I can do to help get you guys, on the straight and narrow path. Let me turn my AC on here. Any mistakes that you can avoid making, lessons learned that we can learn together instead of you having to learn the hard way. That's what's important. So next we have here, good. Occupational therapist services. Happens to be due tomorrow. Small business set aside. And we're using the NAICS code, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. They are saying this is for the Tau Day school. In terms of attachments, we have a solicitation, statement of work, an amendment, and another statement of work. So one of these may be amended as well. Yeah, it looks like it's solicitation, amended solicitation. And the way they did it is statement of work, amended statement of work. So we will just take these from the top. Albert says, I was literally looking at this exact same one for Tau Day school. So, hey, Albert, if you have any specific questions, this would be a great time to ask them. So we're hit with our 1449 form. Looks like we have a base. Where is this? Yeah. So starting September 2nd, so not a whole lot of time, literally a week from now. And guys, when you see this, you're like, man, when is the contract even going to be awarded? My guess is this is due tomorrow. It's not going to be awarded by the 2nd. My guess is they will be pushing this date back. It's interesting that it's not for a full year. It goes September through the end of July. So I'm not sure what happened to August. So it's more of an 11-month contract. But we've got a base, option year 1, option year 2. Option year 3 and option year 4. So base plus 4, so nice contract. And again, this is for occupational therapist services. They're giving us clear period of performances. So even though, yeah. Okay, so these actually make a lot more sense than what I was reading. So it makes sense. So we have our period of performances. Then we have our pricing table, which I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. And this is just going to mirror what we just saw. So for the base here, they want you to input a hourly rate. They're telling you 4 hours per week for 40 weeks. And then that's going to be whatever your rate is times 160 hours. And that's again for the whole year because it's 4 hours a week. And then you do that and then you get your total. So pretty straightforward math. Hopefully you understand that. And then you just do that for all the 4 option periods. So pretty straightforward. And then your total price is going to be the aggregate of the base plus 4, and that will go here. So we have our, I want to point out, guys, with these regulations, I know some of you guys have a lot of questions sometimes about these. I want to point out, you see how some of these have an X next to them and others don't? The ones that have the X next to them are the regulations that are being incorporated for this contract. Okay, so it's a straight like copy and paste job for all of these, but it's the ones that are X'd are the ones that are applying to this contract. So not every single one is applying. The ones that are marked are the ones that apply. So just keep that in mind. And if you ever want to, learn more about these, a lot of them are pretty straightforward: convict labor, child labor, no text, ban texting and driving, combating trafficking in persons. If you ever want to look up these are clickable hyperlinks, FAR.52.222-35. or you can type it into Google, and there's a couple of great resources that come up as well to explain and make more sense of these to you as well. But just know you're looking for the ones that are checked, not every single one. All right. Okay, so we're hit with our instruction to offers, which is what you need to put into your response to be compliant and stand a chance at winning, also known as Section L. So quote format. Quoters should submit 2 volumes, technical and price, each clearly marked. So my guess is it's going to be 2 separate Word docs. At a minimum, they should include the following. So for the technical, written narrative addressing the technical factor of the capabilities, not to exceed 3 pages. Okay, guys? So they're not looking for, 20, 30, 40 pages on these things. 3 pages max they're saying. So is a page and a half okay? It's totally fine as long as it includes what they're asking for. Specifically, what they're asking for is information on your capabilities as it relates to this requirement to include experience of work that is similar in size and scope, so recent and relevant. Time talking about past performance, right? Or past experience. Information should also be included to demonstrate a thorough understanding of the requirement. Project schedules or plans are encouraged. So for your capabilities, I would break it down into three sections to do a good job at this based on what I've read. I would have some sort of previous experience in here. If you're going to work with a sub, you can use theirs. So that would be a section. Another section would be writing to the statement of work. So not just repeating what's in the statement of work and saying, we'll do this, but writing to how you will do this. Okay, that's this distinction. And then number 3, I would put in some project schedules and plans since they are saying that is encouraged. Do that. Don't max out 3 pages, and you would have a pretty good chance. So again, Albert, I know we're not doing questions just yet, but if you are watching, that would be a good way to approach this. And then for the pricing volume, you're gonna fill out the pricing as they gave it to you. So literally fill out this table, and you can extract it. This table right here. And then we also have our SF-1449 form that we're going to fill out. Back to page 15, where you're going to fill out the SF-1449 document, acknowledge any amendments, which there is one, and then submit that bid schedule that we talked about. So this is actually a very straightforward response. 3 pages plus pricing, plus print, sign, and dating of the SF-1449 form, and then completing any reps and certs. That's your whole quote unquote proposal, guys. Small business proposals are, they're not impossible. They're very straightforward, and they're usually like between 3 and 15 pages. We're not looking at $10 million contracts where you spend months and months. And I think that's the problem with this space is there's a lot of people out there that are teaching things, but it's to the wrong audience. Like, sure, if you're a $20 million company, and the average proposal or job you're going after is 3 million, 5 million, 8 million, 10 million, then yeah, these things are going to get a bit more of an investment. But with these smaller bids, you're new, you want to win something that's between 100K and $1 million, then that's what we kind of focus on, because I think a lot of you would be A-okay winning a few of those over the next 6 months or so. And that's where we focus, and that's why we're different, and that's why sometimes people don't get what I'm doing here. It's because I focus on small business stuff, and when I say small, I mean very small. I'm not looking at $10 million contracts. So that's kind of your instruction to offers, what you need to put together for your response. And then lastly is your evaluation factors, how the winning bidder will be chosen. They're telling us this is lowest price. So first, you have to be found technically acceptable, which is even better. You put those 3, sections together in your proposal, no more than 3 pages. Those are going to check the boxes. It's going to be pass, fail. They're not going to grade those elements, exceptional, very good, satisfactory. They're not doing that with that. They're doing it, are you technically acceptable? Do you pass the test? Do you give us confidence enough? If so, then we're going to look at your price. And we're going to compare it to other companies that also passed the technically acceptable test, that first hurdle. And then whoever's left standing, we're going to compare the prices. And then whoever has the lowest price is going to win this job. Here's the reps inserts. And this is pretty much probably going to end the solicitation document. So very straightforward, hopefully very encouraging for some of you who may be going after this, although it's due again tomorrow. So not a whole lot of time. Bear with me as my allergies are at an all-time high and my eyes are probably super red right now. We'll check the chat really quickly. Rafa, doesn't the consultant submit the invoicing? The prime contractor submits the invoicing. Therefore, they get the money and have to pay the sub. They will be involved. 100%. Yeah. Responding back to the earlier comment of not just passing everything to the sub. Yes, it's because you as the prime, you have the direct contract with the government. The sub's not going to get paid. To your point, Rafa, the prime has to pay the sub. It said the government never pays a sub directly. Unless there's like some sort of issue where they like pull your bond and it's a nightmare and you walked off the job. I mean, I've seen nightmare scenarios where maybe that would happen, but yep. How do you feel about using factoring companies? Factoring companies, they basically charge by like the day, and it's a fraction of an interest rate. There are GovCon specific factory companies out there that exist. I think it's a fine approach. There's also things like SBA loans out there as well to keep in mind. I get asked sometimes if I offer any sort of financing, which I'm not able to at this point. What would be an additional percentage to add to this itemized hourly? So yeah, Albert, it's up to you to decide and calculate your own company's cost and pricing information. I don't know what it's going to cost for you to operate and manage this contract. So just like any good formula, you would start with costs and expenses to actually perform, whether that's working with a sub or it's a warm body. And then on top of that would be your own company's managerial type costs, overhead, G&A. These can be direct and indirect costs to the contract. And then lastly, the profit on the contract. Wide ranges of profit across all industries can be anywhere from 5 to 25% if you're trying to be competitive. And it very, very much depends on what industry you're in. And you kind of just got to get in, play the game, pick a number. I always say that you can sleep with at night, and don't pick something so low that if you do win it, you're gonna be like sweating bullets. That means you've gone too low. So pick something that you're okay losing because you don't want to go any lower than that anyways. So that's kind of like the good test for it. Get CMOS gel for your allergies. Works wonders. Hey, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you. Never used CMOS. I just got back from a ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor this morning. Before this, I have a eustachian tube dysfunction thing where my ear kind of gets clogged. So I've been kind of learning about that, and it's been a whole lot of fun. And I think allergies contribute to that as well. So awesome. So I think we have time for one more. And Albert, let me know, just out of pure curiosity, if you are actually bidding on this contract that we just reviewed. I'd just be kind of curious to see if we got live active bidders watching. So this last opportunity is for Shred Services, USACE, which is the Army Corps. This is due September 2nd, so about a week away. Small business set aside, Vicksburg. I believe, yeah, I think I've learned this from our last episodes. MS is Mississippi, Vicksburg, Mississippi. They are citing simplified acquisition procedures here as well. So right off the bat, we can just have in our head as we put this puzzle together, these shredding services is going to be less than $250K. The government tends to make one award. Offers for less than the required delivery will not be accepted. You can't quote part of the job. You have to quote all of the job. The government will intend without discussions. Offers are encouraged to provide their best proposed pricing in their initial offer for that same reason. So in terms of solicitations, we just have, or attachments rather, we just have one, and that is the solicitation. SF 1449 form. We do have pricing CLIN, that is one line item. Unlike the other one that was for event, I forget what it was. It was testing events for every 6 years. This pricing CLIN actually is accurate. So shred truck services provide all necessary labor, equipment, and materials to the Vicksburg district. We're hit with a statement of work. So they need cross-cut shredders and only cross-cut shredders listed for high security cross-cut paper. Okay. And I know there's lots of like shredding companies out there that do this, guys. So because this is underneath simplified acquisition threshold, this would be like shopping around for subs. Probably somebody that's in the Vicksburg area, if you could find it, since there appears to be truck and travel. So there are bankers boxes identified for destruction for this shred request. So whatever's in these bankers boxes, okay? So it's going to be all these records that they need to make sure are destroyed properly. Pretty straightforward. This is going to begin September 19th. This is our delivery schedule. We have a wage determination. Yeah, looking extremely straightforward. Let's see if we have any instruction to offers. Just reps inserts. Okay, we do. So here's instructions. And guys, these are usually at the end of the document, which is why I often read from the end of the document and I go forward. But I don't want to confuse you guys, so I don't do that live. But on my own, I will do that. I'll start at the end just so I can get right to this stuff. So quotes shall be emailed with subject reading. So use this in your email subject line. This is for if you're asking questions. And that's kind of it. They didn't really have much for us. We already know this is... Didn't they say this was LPTA, or am I going crazy? Maybe I'm thinking of the last one. They're telling us here, technical, past performance, and pricing is how it will be evaluated. But this is more of a boilerplate type thing. So sometimes the government will be more specific than that. So that's what we actually look for as well. If there is nothing else, then you just follow those instructions. But yeah, there's... Let me just double check. So they're saying lowest price here as well. And that's the only place in the proposal. So for this one, it would be, it would be cover page, cover letter, and then a technical acceptability, which They're saying capability in accordance with the terms, basically respond to the statement of work for your technical past performance. Work within the last 5 years. And if you're working with a sub on this, that should be no problem. And then price, they're looking for price reasonableness. Otherwise, if it's unbalanced pricing, unrealistically high or low, they are not going to consider you. But then also lowest price for the price. So that's really what we have to go on this one. Scope of work, like I said, appears to be pretty straightforward. Then you have your reps and certs. You have your SF-1449 form, your one pricing CLIN, so you can extract that stuff. And that's about it. So, and I think we are right where we need to be time-wise. So we'll check the chat one more time. All right, Albert says, okay, thanks. I'll let you know once I finish the bid. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. That's exciting. That's due tomorrow. So, hey, man, maybe you win this for sure. Like that would be awesome. Nick Brand, I saw a request for quote for National Guard, 24-foot rental for 1 year or 1 year to 4 year with options. Hey, yeah, that's awesome, man. Definitely. Have to get back to work. Catch you next time. Hey, man, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you. We'll definitely touch base next time. When I reached out to rental car companies, they didn't allow third-party rental under insurance. Need more context to this one, I guess. When I reached out to rental car company, so I'm assuming you're looking at a bid on SAM to provide rental cars. You reached out to the rental car company and they did not allow third-party rental under insurance. So meaning renting the car out to the government for the government to use and drive around. They're saying, well, they're not going to insure that. Okay, so then maybe you have your own insurance. And then also, I thought I saw a video related to heavy equipment, dump trucks, etc. How did you middleman that if rental car companies have that restriction? We didn't go to a rental car company. We went to a leaser company, and we were able to middleman that because they were also a small business and it was a small business set aside. So it was similarly situated as well. And we have our own company insurance and they have their own insurance as well. And it was for a few months. So it wasn't for like an extended term or anything like that. We actually ran into trouble on that contract because they extended certain machinery and they didn't extend others, and it messed with our pricing. And yeah, I have a video on that on my first $1 million contract, and I go into more details on that if you're interested. Albert says, I'm waiting on my cage number. I just got my UIN. Oh yeah. So Albert, probably can't bid if it's due tomorrow unless you want to like try it. But if you don't have a cage, you're not technically registered in SAM, which means you're not technically able to bid. So unless this thing comes through over the next couple of days, and then by the time they come to like award or consider your company and they can see that you have a cage code, unless that happens, that kind of perfect storm, and the timing is right, then it's probably best to wait until you do get registered. I don't know when you submitted it, but there's hangups like on physical address hangups in SAM. There's IRS TIN mismatch hangups that can happen that can cause registration to last like a couple of months instead of a couple of weeks. Joaquin says, I need your help. I just registered my business in SAM. Sent 20 offers, and now I got an email. Your DIBS account is locked because we need more info on your business. My company is in my bedroom. And they're asking me for actual pictures of my business. I'm not that familiar with DIBS, to be honest with you. DIBS is more parts and pieces. I'm really extremely proficient in SAM. SAM doesn't ask for pictures. They ask for your physical address. And if that is your home, that's not a problem. I actually haven't heard of a DIBS asking for pictures of your business. Maybe it's new, or maybe it's just my lack of experience with the DLA. I can't really do a whole lot to help you, unfortunately. you're saying you submit 20 offers, so you kind of just went ham on it once you got let off the leash, it sounds like. But now you're saying that your account is locked. My best bet, man, is to take some pictures. I mean, if that's what's stopping you from getting what you need, set up a desk area, get a desk at your computer, say, this is my office. There's nothing wrong with having a home-based office. Some people think that they get that in their head that you can't work from home, but you absolutely can work from home. So that's fine. And you, like if the SBA, for example, I'm experienced with the 8A program. So the SBA once a year will come and visit your office. So if your office is a home, the way that they verify that it's an office is it has to be a room with a door. So it has to have a door on it. And then that room should also not be used for, other purposes. So if you have like a spare bedroom or whatever that you can turn into an office that has a door on it, it'd be good enough for the SBA. I don't know why it wouldn't be good enough for the DLA. So that, I guess, is my best advice. If you can set something like that up, or at least demonstrate that in the photos, if you get what I'm saying. Don't put your bed in the photo, obviously. Then you got to play ball with them. It is really. T. Wilkes says, can we talk about pricing? I'm not sure if you have more specific questions. Invoicing may be a concern because you haven't done it before, assuming you haven't. But once you win the contract, contracting gives you those instructions. And they also give you somebody like accounts payable person, a POC on the inside, so that you can submit those invoices to. Or if you have to get set up in a system like WAF, Wide Area Workflow, they help you to get registered and set up and show you how to submit those. So generically speaking, that is the process, and it's not something to get too geeked out about until you win a contract, at which point in time you will have them to support you. I just started doing some reselling in February. I just started with the DLA. Should I worry to be rejected, or is this normal? I'm not sure what you mean by rejected. I also work for a sub doing purchasing, so I have 2 years of experience doing it. And as a side hustle, I'm doing it at home. I'm 27. Sounds like you have some experience doing this under your belt. I'm not sure why you would be rejected unless you're talking about the pictures again, which I would just kind of follow that advice that I previously mentioned. Do I need any kind of certification, i.e. CPPO, CPPB to bid on these contracts? I'd like to sign up for some courses coaching if you offer any. So you need to be registered in SAM. So you need to have a business first. You have to have an entity first, most likely going to be an LLC or some sort of S Corp, C Corp, maybe a sole proprietorship we see here and there. Got to be something that's registered. You're going to have some form of tax ID number, either a social security number, or you're going to have an employer ID number, an EIN. Then you need to bring that to SAM and register that in SAM so that you can get your unique ID number, which has replaced the DUNS, as well as your cage code. Once you have that, that's all that you need. There's no other quote unquote certifications that you need to be able to bid on contracts on SAM. Rafa says, Dibs is tough. They want to see a factory. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because Dibs is parts and pieces. And they really are kind of their own little world over there, which I say I'm the SAM guy. So like I said, my experience is limited. Yeah, he might be is he looking at Unisys? Unison. And that's a good point. Unison. And if you're not looking at Unison, Joaquin, you do want to go to Google, type in Unison Marketplace. It's a procurement. It's a reverse auction. It is a commodity buy website. That's a third party that works with federal agencies. And they do not have any of those restrictions or big hurdles to get over like the DLA does. You're pretty adamant about saying DLA, so I do assume that it is the DLA that you're talking about. Consider, like, if you do hit a a dead end road, I guess. And I think this is a great point by Rafa to consider going to Unison Marketplace, formerly Fed Bid, and it's reverse auction. So your open price, your incremental price, and then your floor price. It'll take you through a template to put that stuff in. And then basically whoever has the lowest floor or who was ever able to go lower, and in some cases there's not a lot of bidders, so maybe you'll make more than you expected. Other times it's a race to the bottom and you make almost nothing. But it kind of gets you out of doing proposals and reading lengthy RFPs and RFQs. So it's a decent starting point for some, especially those who want to, do the drop shipping / reseller thing. So I think that's a good point. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it. And again, I know we had the one question about additional support. So if you didn't catch it at the beginning, I do have a website, GovKidMethod.com. We have free and paid resources there for you if you are newly registered in SAM.gov, or you're just a new federal contractor that's looking to learn how to bid on SAM. Those are what the resources are geared towards. And I mentioned I also do have that free masterclass training where we go into a lot of depth on doing for example, the middleman strategy and subcontracting the legal way, because you can't just, unlike what some people say, I'm not naming names, you can't just go out there guns a-blazing and just give away whole contracts. In certain instances, it could look that way, but in all instances, that is not the acceptable blanket statement approach to that. That's actually very dangerous. Businesses go to jail. They have to repay restitutions. Just look up illegal pass-through schemes in Google. That's why you want to make sure you do it the legal way. And if you don't know how to do that, it's all in the masterclass on my website as well. So let's see here. One more question and then we will call it. Hi, Derek. If we win a contract, how do we find subs? Thanks for all the nuggets. Best words of advice, find subs first, because that's what you're going to use for the pricing. And then if you win the contract, you go to the sub and say, we won. And if you're going to shake them down some more or whatever, you do that. And then you put in a subcontract agreement with them. Never just make up pricing. And then if you win, try to find somebody, because that's backwards. You want to find that first. And I don't know how you would bid it without them anyways. I don't know how you would get pricing. So yeah, just words from a friend, find the subs first. All right, guys, great hanging out. If you like this video, smash that like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you don't miss videos like this in the future and future lives. This way you can receive notifications on your phone, and you can bring your questions and ask those as well. So thanks for hanging out, and we will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Thanks, everybody.